Thank you. Thank you. And we can quickly introduce ourselves. Deepak is the CEO. Deepak, do you want to start off first and then we could jump right in?
Thank you very much for arranging this. Great to meet you again, Vas, and also all of you on the call. Fantastic to meet. I myself have, as you would expect, might expect, have been through a cross-cultural kind of series of experiences. Grew up in India, came to the US for my graduate work, and stayed here for since then for many years. Have lived in India and Singapore as well, and so understand some of the challenges around cross-cultural communication. But anyhow, so quickly, my background. Came to the US many years ago, did an MBA, was in consulting for some time, and then got into the high tech sector, worked at a company during the dot-com era, which became a unicorn, and then, of course, subsequently crashed, and we had to rebuild it. I spent some years in the nonprofit world in health, in public health. I was with the Clinton Foundation on working on the HIV/AIDS initiative, mostly in Africa, but also in Southeast Asia and the Caribbean. And then I spent some years in the renewable energy sector in Asia, building solar power plants, grid connected, ground mounted in several countries in Southeast Asia and South Asia. And after that journey brought me back to where I'm based today, which is Boston. I joined a venture fund. We invest in companies that use AI to solve interesting real world problems. By the way, we've been doing that for many years before ChatGPT hit. And so, we believe in the power of AI if done right. One of our portfolio companies is English Helper, and this opportunity to lead the company opened up. And so a couple of years ago, I stepped into the role. And I'll tell you a little bit about English Helper once my colleagues also introduce themselves. So, Emil and Hema, why don't you guys share a little bit about yourselves and then we'll get started.
Great. Hema, please.
Thanks, Emil. Hello, everybody. My name is Hema Murthy. So I work out of India. I work with a lot of learners for whom English is not the first language. At English Helper, I lead the product and the content practices. But I worked across India, the US, and with a whole bunch of countries from around the world, have family everywhere in the world, and very keen to the changing culture and the different ways in which we all speak our languages as well as English. So my job is to make sure that everything that you do with us has a learning outcome, and it's driven by learning science and research. Over to you, Emil.
Great. Thanks, Hema. Hi, everyone. It's so great to meet you. We're really excited to collaborate with all of you today. So I work on the marketing and business development side at English Helper. Before this, I've held just senior roles on the marketing side for global foundations. I've worked in the US as well as all over the world. And I was in grad school and I was very excited to join English Helper because I wanted to find a company that combined technology and impact. And I think it's really exciting to see, as all of you know right now, we're in the age of AI. And I think it's really neat to see how AI could be used as a force of good. And I think this company is really doing that. And I think we're really excited to tell you more about that today, and see if we could get your help in scaling to millions of more learners across the world who have that desire to speak English. So again, very excited to connect. Deepak, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Okay, so maybe let me start by talking to you a little bit about the company, where we started, what we started with, and where we are today, and what we're doing today, and then we can take it from there. So, as a company, English Helper has been around for a little over 10 years. Our first product was really a classroom product aimed at school learners, K-12. And the idea was that while students get to learn a little bit about reading, might even write a little, a challenge, and often, like for example, for students coming out of India, is developing confidence in spoken English. And so that's really what we focused on in with our first product. And it was fairly straightforward. What it would do is it would take your textbook, your English textbook, and the teacher could pick a paragraph and it would read the paragraph out with the correct accent. And then the class would read along, and then the class would read without the product reading, and then individual students would be called upon to read. And in this process of listening to the correct pronunciation and then reading out loud and then listening and reading out loud, what really happened was the pronunciation and fluency got trained. And so students became much more comfortable in the communication around English as opposed to just the understanding of English. So that was the first product. We reached substantial scale with that, over 100,000 schools, over 20 million students learning from the product, mostly in India. We had a smaller presence in South America, but for the most part, I would say the learners came from India. Our next product, which we launched last year, is a far more comprehensive product. And you can imagine what's happened in these 10 years. In these 10 years, the internet has become much more pervasive, devices have become much more pervasive. And through a device and an internet connection, you can access cloud infrastructure, which supports a substantial compute. And so, given these capabilities, we came up with a what we call a product platform that does foundational literacy in English. So we work on listening, speaking, reading, and writing, which are the four core skills. And we provide, so as learners come in, they go through an assessment. We understand where they are, what their level of proficiency is, and then we put them on a learning pathway that helps them then improve those skills. And as they're doing this, they're getting instant feedback. Are they comprehending what they're reading or listening to? Are they pronouncing correctly? Are they constructing what they say coherently, etc.? And so we're providing that feedback to them. And so this is a product that we call RCA, Reading and Comprehension Assistant. And it is, a fairly vast product in terms of its capabilities. We have created this for K-12. We have created this for post-secondary or college learners, and we have created this for adults. Now, if you think about kind of what is the vision behind what we're trying to do, it goes something like this. As you know, I mean, our world is changing more and more rapidly, right? And there used to be this model when I was growing up, Vas, perhaps when you were growing up, that you go to school, then you go to college, and then you start working, and that's what you do for the rest of your life. But this idea that the world is changing so rapidly that you need to kind of continue to learn. You can't say, okay, I'm done with learning and now I'm practicing. And so you have to learn all the time. I mean, we're all learning, even today, with all the new developments that are happening around us. And so then the question becomes, what is a durable skill that you need for your entire professional life? And I would argue that it's the ability to learn. So if you have the ability to learn, then you're set for life because you can keep learning as you go. But what is this ability to learn? How do you learn, right? And you learn by mastering a skill set that allows you to learn, and that's the language skill set, right? So we're thinking of English less as a language to just communicate, of course, to communicate, but much more than that, as a skill set that allows you to learn, right? And so in our platform, what we've provided is the ability for you to acquire new skills and keep practicing those skills until you get proficient, and then you can use those skills to actually learn. And so that's what our product does. We have a second product, which dovetails nicely with the first one. And here, what we do is we take subject-specific content. So let's say you want to learn hotel management, or you want to learn nursing, or you want to learn civics or history or political science. We will take material that relates to those subjects and make it available through our platform for you to learn, even if your English isn't very strong. So here, what's starting to happen is we're helping you learn English on that material, but we're also helping you learn that material with many language aids and in many we provide 60 kind of native languages or mother tongues to provide support for you to understand how you can learn material, even if your English isn't very strong. So, sorry, I've been speaking for some time here, but to kind of pull out the two basic concepts. One is skill building with English, and the second is knowledge acquisition of specific subjects which are encoded in English. Those are the two things that we do, and we provide a lot of learning aids for students to be able to acquire those materials with as low a cognitive load as possible.
I would add to that that in addition to your sort of general path you described, that I still remember, you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, and most of that happens in the same city where you were born, or at least in the same country. And then I remember like the 80s, 90s, all of a sudden English becomes more and more important. And then now I don't even think I know any people who are from this city. So everybody came from somewhere else, often from a different country. And so English in and of itself, not only as a brain development, as a sort of skill acquisition tool, but just simply as a communication language. You kind of need to know it now if you are a professional, so like it or not. So yes.
Yeah, so I think that that's an important point, Vas, and I know that the students you have here come from around the world, and I'd be curious to hear some of their perspectives. But what I've seen in, for example, India, is about 10 years ago, there's a lot of debate around should English be important or how important should English be, and we have our states. Each state has its own language or languages, and we want to preserve our culture, etc. So there was this like tension, right, about English versus mother tongue. Today, that tension's gone completely, right? People recognize, okay, my mother tongue is important for my culture for various other reasons, but the language of professional mobility is English. If I want to get ahead, I have to learn English. If I want a job, if I want to kind of advance more quickly, if I just learn the language of my state, I don't have mobility. I can't move to another state. I can't move to a big city. I have to know English. So in India, it's pretty clear that everybody needs English skills, and I think they understand it. I don't know if that's the case everywhere else, but certainly we see that in that geography.
Yeah, very much so everywhere from what I see. Plus, again, it's not even, I come from a country from Ukraine, where Ukrainian is important. And, if I were in charge, some people might say, promote Ukrainian. But English, it's also a language, not only for selfish interest mobility, but also for the society to be able to be fully integrated in the global supply chains, production chain. I mean, it just seems like, it's a tool. I mean, it's a very important tool.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. So that was my kind of early initial remarks. I don't know, Emil, Hema, do you want to add anything
If you
before we
want
go
to
to
add
that?
something, and we do have some questions already.
Yeah.
But yes, if you want to add anything else, and then we can move on to the interview style conversation.
No, it'd be great to get the questions.
Well,
Okay.
let me ask you a few clarifying technical questions. So you mentioned schools as your clients, individuals. So who is the decision maker, so to speak, or who is the customer? Is it an institution, a school, a company, a university, a school district? Is it an individual? And then if it's an individual, is it a parent buying a subscription for the kid? Is it a parent buying a subscription for the parent, or all of the above?
Yeah. So, we made an explicit decision not to go directly to end learners. So we're not a consumer company,
So it's
consumer tech, right?
B2B, not
B2C.
B2C, right?
Correct. We think of us as B2B2C or B2G2C, where G is government, which is like a business. So the way we think about it, we like to go to institutions or organizations that have pools of learners. And we work with those institutions or organizations to set up a fairly tailored learning environment for their learners. And these institutions have a lot of agency, so they don't just have to take the content we bring. We can use their content. We can tailor it the way they would like to deliver learning to their community, and then we make that available. We have a pretty strong presence, as you would imagine, in India. We're starting out in some other geographies, in Turkey, in Central Asia, in Europe. And we are looking for partners to work with that can take us to either pools of learners or to institutions that have learners. So I'll give you an example. So we work with colleges. Now, we could either go directly to a college and set up an agreement and have the college push it out. Or if you're picking countries where we don't have a presence, we could go to a partner, a distribution partner, who then goes to colleges and sets this up in colleges. So, for example, in Turkey, we have a distribution partner that is going to colleges and then setting this up with colleges for their students, right? So, but we don't have a direct to end learner model, and I don't anticipate us going down that path anytime soon.
Mhm. Now, a related question. So, both for students, it's critically important that they do it, but also to make sure that it comes with some value for the company. One of the steps we ask them to do is to interview potential customers, essentially decision makers, asking questions, are you using any products like that? How do you choose them? Which one do you buy? Have you heard about English Helper? Would you consider buying an English Helper? Take a look here, what do you like, what you don't like? So whom should they target for these interviews to understand your customer? So would it be school principals, procurement departments, school district officials, the Ministry of Education, all of the above? What would be the right type of people they would need to interview to fully understand your customer?
Yeah. I think the way I would answer that question is we should start by who the ultimate customer is. So when we're talking about school kids, let's say K-12,
Mhm.
right? We have to understand how do decisions get made within the K-12 world, right? And it's different country by country. I mean, if you look at the US,
Yeah,
it is very, very
very
decentralized.
decentralized. In fact, to the point that I think it's detrimental. It's like almost
Yeah.
to a problem decentralized. But yeah.
Yeah. So in the US, it's so decentralized, to your point, that if you want to really scale, the only way you can really scale is word of mouth. So you go to a few places, you try to create some real momentum, then others hear about it, and that's how you do it. But going top down just doesn't work. India is a little bit of a different model where if you go to private schools, particularly elite private schools, it's school by school. But India has a lot of government schools, and typically for government schools, it's the state governments that make decisions. And so we have some relationships in India that are statewide because the state government is our partner and our sponsor, and they decide, okay, all our schools need this, we're going to all of our schools, right? So in K-12, I would say understanding kind of what is the chain of command and where do decisions get made is would be very helpful. And then, of course, there's the how important is English? What tools are already there? Is this going to be substantially better? Could it be? How the way to understand that is by dealing with the folks who deal with the curriculum and deal with English as a language. And so I think a combination of the academic teams that are driving curriculum and the state or the school infrastructure that is deciding, financial decisions. I think understanding those two things is important. For adults, I would say, I mean, colleges, of course, in the US, it's pretty straightforward. We go to ESL. In every college, there's an ESL kind of team, English as a second language, and you can follow the chain through those. I think in countries where English is not the first language, typically, it's a more of a mainstream problem. So where, whoever is in charge of driving English, and of course the college administration, the provost, the head of the college, become very important stakeholders, right? Because they're the ones who would determine, is English important or not? Do I need to do something about it? If I do, what are the tools to look at? And English Helper becomes a tool. For corporates, I would say it's probably the learning and development arms of corporations, or the training arms of corporations, where, if you talked about Ukraine, we're doing some work in Uzbekistan, and something interesting is happening in Uzbekistan, which is that Uzbekistan has rare earth materials, rare earth metals, and because of the current politics around the world, suddenly rare earth materials have become very important and alternate sources. And so Uzbekistan has a lot of interest from foreign corporations, but nobody or very few people in Uzbekistan speak English. And so English is becoming important because they have to be able to communicate with potential customers,
Mhm.
potential partners. And so that's driving that's driving a need for bringing English to the country, right? So we have to, I think it's not a one formula fits all, but I think it's a following the chain of is English important, how important, and is there a gap? And then that opens up the conversation to, okay, we have a way to address that gap.
Mhm. So students, that's both a note to you, but it will lead to a question. So you will start by studying the industry, then importantly figuring out in your country or the country you recommend who the decision makers are, be it, as we said, somebody at the school level, at the school district level, at the regional level, at the country federal ministry level. And then once you identify those people, one of the questions you will need to answer is what are the easy, cheap, effective ways to reach those decision makers? And in the past, we've seen it all. So from paid ads to mailing lists to conferences to some other ways. And so my question for you is, what are the channels you currently use to reach those decision makers? Do you go directly to them? Do you catch them, so to speak, at conferences? Are you using some paid advertisement? So what are the ways you inform your potential buyers of your product?
Yeah. So right now it is, we're still a fairly small company. And so right now it is still mostly outreach by the team and through our networks. We are not really doing much paid advertising. We are, you know, again, I mean, from a proactive outreach perspective, we really focused on India
Mhm.
as our first base. Opportunistically, of course, we're in other countries, but that was because, we knew somebody who reached out to us and they liked what we had. But in India, I would tell you that we are doing conferences for sure, and we're meeting relevant people there. We are also doing outreach to school chains, outreach to state governments. We have partnerships, so we have partners who are taking us to market. We work actually, in fact, this may be worth pointing out here. We work well with publishers. So if you think of publishers that have content that they want to take to their to their communities. We are a digital platform, a safe digital platform that protects their IP and protects their materials, but provides a lot of learning aids around it. So we're working with some global publishers such as Wiley and
Mhm,
and
mhm.
uh, and Macmillan, but we're also working with some local publishers in India. So one opportunity for your students to consider perhaps are there publishers in their countries or in their
Right.
geographies of interest that might be interested in understanding more about our solution.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So and then extending the questions, competition. So again, both who are your competitors? I assume it probably wouldn't be Duolingo because they primarily serve end users. So it would be something else. And then to the students, pay attention to the answer to this question because again, it might not be a bad idea to interview the competitors to understand how they operate from the pricing model to the advertisement channels to how they set up their business. Again, you don't need to tell them that you are interviewing to understand, to serve a competitor, but it's always a good idea. Maybe they do something that some ideas that you can borrow, so to speak. I don't encourage industrial espionage, but you want to know how the industry operates in your country. And who knows, maybe somewhere, wherever you are, another similar company, so to speak, crack the code. But back to you. So then, who are your competitors, both in terms
Yeah.
of the specific names, but also general types of companies?
Sure, sure. So, a few types of competitors. So, I mentioned to you that we do the full spectrum of language skills, right? Listening, speaking, reading, and writing. We have competitors that are in each of those spaces. So, some competitors work more on listening and speaking, some on reading comprehension, some like Grammarly on writing. So, I think that is one differentiation that we are looking at developing English as a complete skill set so that you can operate in all forms of the language, which I think some of our competitors haven't taken uh, uh, the comprehensive part. They've gone deep into some areas. Secondly, we're thinking of English as kind of building the skill set to learn. So think of it as rigorous, right? This is not oh, let's have some fun and we'll learn a lot and then we'll be fine and we can get by. This is, I mean, how do I learn English well enough to crack Shakespeare, right? I mean, so it takes real work, it takes real effort, but the platform provides you with that ability to do that, right? So I think we're quite rigorous. And I would say, in terms of the competition for what we actually do, I think it's human teaching, right? Because it's in classrooms and teachers that are as rigorous and complete, or at least that's their objective. Uh, so I would say those are the competitors we see more often. Hema, anything to add in terms of competitors you've been also watching and looking at? I know in every country there are local
Yeah, so
competitors as well,
that's
like we have in India.
mhm.
Yeah, Hema?
So yeah, thanks, Deepak. So there are a few other things also, a few other dimensions to the competitive landscape. One of which is that, so Deepak mentioned about the listening, speaking, reading, writing, and the extent of the comprehensiveness of our solution. Also, when you think about the learners, our learners is really anybody who needs to learn English. So that could be a K-12 student, that could be an adult student. So typically we find that players in the competitive landscape are catering to any one kind of audience and not all of them. So that's one edge, so to speak, that English Helper has. The other one, of course, one other way to think about it is that most of the apps, and we've made it clear that we don't go direct to consumer, but most of the apps and applications that we see either are a software or they are consumer apps, which means they are fulfilling the need of language and helping students construct sentences and communicate. We take it deeper, this deeper comprehension. So English Helper solutions will always be about skill building and acquisition of knowledge and lifelong learning. So in that sense, again, companies that go beyond language learning to acquisition of skills and knowledge would be another way to think about how to define the competitor landscape in every country.
Yeah.
So just a few more dimensions to the thought.
Yeah, and maybe thanks, Hema. Maybe I'll add one more, Vas, for completeness. Because of what we do, we've also built a fair amount of administrative and reporting capability of the platform.
Assessment and things, yeah.
So you think about this, right? We're working with the state of Punjab in India for all high schoolers, 9 to 12 graders. So the state has a dashboard through which they can see the whole state. They can drill down district by district. They can drill down to schools. They can drill down to classes, and they can drill down to individual students. So they're able to see what's going on across their entire state in a near real-time basis. And so if they see, okay, yesterday and today there were no signups, or students didn't come on to the platform, they can immediately start a feedback loop getting in touch with the school saying, hey, what's the problem? Why the drop off, right? So that level of monitoring and understanding what's going on in the system is something that we're able to provide. And a lot of the competitors that are in the consumer space don't do that because they don't need to do that. They don't have institutional clients to whom they want to provide data. Yeah.
I can see how this is extremely important. Yes.
And just two more things to add. I think what makes us very different than the rest of the competition, one is we're content agnostic, right? So a lot of the companies in the market, they come with their own content, and that's the content that learners are expected to experience. We could go to a publishing company, we could go to a higher education institution or a K through 12 school and take their content and put that in our system. And that makes a huge difference, right? Because they're not adapting to us, we're adapting to their needs and their content. And the second thing is around standards. So our system can adapt to any type of standard, whether it's CIFAR, Common Core, right? Again, that's really important when you're going to different parts around the world or the US. You have to adapt to their needs. And what makes our platform so unique, I think, from other products out there is that we adapt to the educators and the learners' needs.
A couple of technical questions. So what exactly then is the product? My understanding is that it's much more than just an app and not necessarily an app. Is it a separate software package? Is it web-based? Is it app-based? Is it for teachers, or who is the operator? So can you tell us a little bit more about the product itself, the technical sort of component?
Hema, you want to take that question?
To
Sure,
me,
sure,
it
Deepak.
sounds like it's a comprehensive product with login possibilities for everyone from the ministry to the end user and everyone in between having their own dashboard, but I may be wrong.
Yeah, I almost want to say all of the above, Vas.
That's what I
But
thought, yeah.
so so essentially, in the end, so all our application is built for the learner. So in that sense, while a business model is not B2C, our designs are for the consumer. So essentially, what that means is that students get a login and a password, and then they work on the application. This application can be accessed through a browser on your laptop or tablet, on your mobile browsers, Android apps as well as iOS apps. And again, another unique thing that we do is that a lot of our students work in low resource environments. So access to internet connectivity is patchy, and access to device is sometimes difficult. So we work through those constraints. We do allow the apps to work offline. So students would download that, work on their material, and then delete whatever they need to delete as far as content, go back. All their work is saved with us on the cloud, but on their devices, they can do bite-sized work. So essentially, that is now the platform is a learning platform, and the idea is to be able to teach the material with aids to comprehension, and to give instant feedback on speaking and writing. And the aids to comprehension include all kinds of listening aids. You can listen to the material in the voice of your choice. You can translate it to your mother tongue. You can translate at a paragraph level. You can translate at a word level. So it is a complete, comprehensive learning platform, but it also comes with built-in content. So a lot of our partners or clients do not have content, and we also bring it with our experience in working with language and how students learn. We also provide content out of the box, and of course, it can be adapted to anybody's need. So it is essentially, when I meant all of the above, it's actually the complete learning platform with AI solutions running on it, with content loaded on it, and plus, to add to Deepak's point, an administrative module where all the administrative entities can look at dashboards at any point in time.
And so maybe one way to think about it, I think, Vas, might be that it's almost like an enterprise app, which is accessible through a personal app, right? So the scale is
That's
pretty
what I thought.
massive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Everybody
the
has their
window
sort of
is
corner.
through your browser or through your native app. Correct.
Yeah. Can you also tell us more about your geography? So you said that you primarily operate, or you have India more or less covered, but it sounds like you have operations or customers all around the world, and then also expanding or moving into new markets. Do you have any preferences, any specific targets, or you are open to any market where there is interest?
Yeah, sure. So, we think about this as a combination of what are we doing proactively and what are we doing opportunistically, right? Because we're a small company, we don't have the ability to be proactive around the world. So I would tell you strategically, geographies of real importance to us, of course, are India and the US, right? As starting points. These are geographies where we have people, where we have presence, and where we're able to do things. Beyond that, we are looking to expand to other geographies. And so like we talked about earlier, we've got our first inroads into Turkey. We've got our first inroads into Uzbekistan. We have our first customer in Europe who's actually pan-Europe, actually global customer, but we're certainly looking at them as pan-Europe. And we're doing our first pilots here in the US, and we have one or two small customers in the US, but we're getting started. We are proactively doing some work on South America, Latin America, because we think that's a very important geography for us from a language skilling perspective. And so we've been spending some time learning more about Chile and Peru and of course the Brazil is the big country there, but we are keen to explore those geographies. We're also very keen to explore Southeast Asia, and I'm thinking Taiwan, Korea, Indonesia, uh, Philippines. I think the level of language is generally pretty good, but
Yeah.
those countries I think are Korea are important for us.
Yeah.
But opportunistically, so if we have somebody who is able to find us an opportunity, let's say in a country we have no presence in,
Yeah.
we have learned how to deliver completely remotely, right? So we will, as long as we're working with an institution, we can work with them remotely, and if we need to visit, we can. And so that's how we started in some of these countries that we're in.
Yeah.
So I would tell you that we are looking to expand. We're looking for opportunities. We just want to make sure that there's some scale. It's hard to support, or let's say if we are looking at one school that has 100 students that are interested in a geography we have no other presence in, that
Yeah.
may be hard. That may be hard. But if we can get some scale so that you say it's big enough for us to say, yep, that makes sense. Let's put some resource behind it. We're ready to start in wherever we find opportunities. I do believe, I actually all of us believe that what we're building is a globally applicable platform, and we want to be the best edtech platform for English in the world. And so for that, we have to go everywhere over time.
From my experience, students also often it is the countries that nobody thinks about where the biggest opportunities are, like the United States or Canada. A lot of foreign language speakers who need help, but the market is saturated. Latin America, Africa, Eastern Europe, you will often find that they not only don't have good presence of other companies, but they are looking for some providers. And so do talk to people in education in your country. You may be surprised that you will find that there is demand and there is no supply. So who knows?
Yeah.
So another difficult question, the pricing strategy. I'm curious, do you determine it on one-on-one basis? I can only imagine that it's complicated. I don't think one price fits all per student. So yes, how do you determine your
Yeah.
price?
Yeah, all that's there's not enough science to it. It's mostly an art, I would tell you that. But the way we think about it is, first of all, so we're a for-profit, but we're an impact first profit
Yeah.
for-profit. And what I mean by that is we're trying to maximize reach. Everybody who touches our platform can benefit, and if they benefit, they can change the trajectory of their future, and that's powerful. And we don't want to say no because someone doesn't have the ability to pay. At the same time, we can't do this for free because we want to be doing it for a long time, and so we have to make it self-sustaining. And so what we've done, Vas, is we have standard price lists for the US, for Europe, for India, but we will construct deals that fit within budgets, and either it's by providing kind of a little bit more of a limited initial offering. Sometimes it's by partnering with the institution who says, I'll pay so much, but if you want more than that, then we'll have to get students to self-pay. So we create an offering for what they're covering, and then we allow students to step up and go in for premium subscriptions and things like that. So and rather than providing clear guidance, I would say we will try to make every opportunity work, and so we'd love to engage and figure out how we fit within the budget and deliver what we have.
Yeah. And an extension of that is also it's a rare case that was the expression doing well by doing good. So some companies sell a product that is not doing good. You just want to make money. Well, in this case, it's actually greatly beneficial for the individual, for the society. So if in the process you make money, I don't mind at all. So it is a societally important product. So,
That
can you
is what
tell?
makes it, sorry, just to pick up
Yeah.
on that point for a second. That's actually what makes it so much fun. I can tell you that Emil and Hema and I and the entire team, I mean, yes, we're working, but we're on a mission, right?
Right,
It
right.
feels like a mission, that this is a mission of importance. And yeah, as a collateral benefit, we should make enough money to keep the business going and growing. But really, it's about reaching those learners and being able to have a real impact that you can then feel.
Yeah. Can you also talk a little bit more about, again, how you're different from competition in one specific aspect? So everything I read about the company on the website and Google searches, this neuroscience keeps coming up. So it sounds like your product is not just intuition, so it's rooted in science. And I don't know, do you do it in-house? Do you use somebody else's research? Is this the differentiating factor, or there is more compared to other companies and products? So how does it work?
Yeah, maybe let me start with that, but then Hema is our expert here on this material. So I would say two things. So first of all, one thing we haven't really talked about explicitly is that one way in which we are actually quite different from most others is in the nature of our AI. Okay. So I mean, there's been so much noise and froth and buzz around these large language models, the Gen AI type of stuff. We don't use those at all, right? We don't use those in our core offering. And the reason is, you know, in education, you want to be transparent and explainable, but you absolutely don't want to hallucinate. You
Mhm.
want to be very precise with what you do. And so we use AI, but we use our own proprietary AI, which is a NLP or a computational linguistics based AI that is extractive, not generative.
Mhm.
And I'm just by saying that, I'm sure you get it that we don't predict words, we don't generate, and so we just pull from the material that we're working with, and so that gives us the ability to be explainable and non-hallucinating. So that's kind of one key difference. The second is to your point, and by the way, on our website in the research section, there's a bunch of material and there's a paper on this. We have integrated learning science and learning pedagogies into the platform as a way of reducing cognitive load while someone is learning, right? And Hema, do you want to just speak a little bit to that?
Sure. So essentially, there are a few principles definitely that underpin our designs. A is that so when we give learners material to learn, typically we inundate them with a lot of material all at once. Now, here we have learners who cannot read or comprehend the language, and then there are new concepts that are being thrown at them. So it's sort of a double whammy. So we reduce the cognitive load. So if we were to talk about, how do we help students learn their subject, we break down the subject into smaller chunks. We build extra information on the subject. Now, different learners learn very differently. So we try to provide learners with their own personal pathways or modes of learning. So learners might want to study through videos. So we would create videos on the topic that they're studying. They might want to do some quizzes, and that's how they learn. So they get to answer some questions on the topic. They might want to, small short snippets of information as summaries. So we would give that to them. So the idea is to ensure that, and then every concept that they are learning could be a different mode in which they want to learn. So the idea is to personalize pathways. Reduce the cognitive load on learners by breaking it down into smaller chunks of information and to deliver this information in various different ways in which they can learn. So those essentially, and then through the methods of spacing, interleaving, repetition, learners start picking up and building on the concept, and then they move forward in their journey. So we meet them where they are, but not just
Mhm.
that, we also take them forward in their learning journeys.
Okay. We are almost out of time, but I would like to ask a few questions that are more sort of for students and less about the company itself, or more about the business side rather than the product. So what are your biggest challenges at this time? Is it resources, technology, people? What kind of challenges does your company or you personally as the company CEO, for example, Mr. Verma, what do you struggle with? What keeps you up at night, so to speak?
So, a couple of things. I think we certainly think there's a real need for what we have, but we are somewhat limited in our ability to reach because we're a young company, we're a growing company, and classic pathway of this is a new product, so we have the new product out, we have a number of customers, we got to generate scale, we have to generate revenue, we have to generate learning outcomes that then enables us to do our next fundraising round and then invest. And so, that's certainly part of life as a startup. And so that's one thing that's pretty important for us to continue to kind of make progress on. Secondly, I think from a technology perspective, and a product, and we talked a lot about competition. We think we've got a pretty solid offering that's pretty comprehensive and different from anything out there. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a bunch of people out there thinking about how they do exactly what we do, and they're trying to kind of get there. And so, obviously, with these new technologies and with the ability, I hear with Lovable and other such kind of platforms, you can develop some capabilities pretty quickly. The question is how real and how strong is our defensibility and our moat? I mean, that is something that we think a lot about because we have to continue to do what we're doing, but we have to continue to build additional defensibility into what we're doing, right? So I would say those are the two big things from my perspective. Also, what we've realized collectively is that, the U.S. has a lot of opportunity, but the U.S. is going to take a lot of investment for us to actually start moving the needle because just the nature of how things are. And so it's a market we want to get to, but I think it's a market that we will probably seriously get to and invest in perhaps in about 6 to 12 months as opposed to right now. So those are the three or four things I would say. Hema, Emil, you guys, from your perspectives, want to add anything to that?
I think one of our commitments also always, Deepak, I think, is to ensure that we keep the costs for our customers low
Yeah.
or as low as we possibly can. So with it comes a lot of, ingenuity and ensuring that we don't invest too much in very high-end
Right.
marketing and advertising and load up on cost of acquisition.
Yeah, and I ask students keep that in mind. Sometimes some advice is, advertise on national television during Super Bowl. Well, first, it's a good strategy for a kind of mass product, but at the same time, it's only for big companies that have a lot of money. The best answers students usually come from ways to find a free or very cheap way to reach exactly the decision makers you want. Sometimes it's a mailing list, sometimes it's an online community, sometimes it's a conference where specifically people who make those kinds of decisions for those kinds of companies, institutions, schools where they congregate. And then also keep in mind, students, again, so one of the comments was that we may have a difficulty investing in a market where we don't have sort of human capital people. Well, you guys are, most of you are at best business schools in 70 countries or whatever the number of countries participate in the semester. So if you really like it and if you make a strong case, maybe you can convince the company to make you their representative in your market. If you somehow talk to the Minister of Education, bring the letter of intent, make the arrangements, you may not only get a good grade for this project, but you may get a job for your next whatever years, who knows? But to that end, the question is, starting a business. So we did a survey of our students that do every semester your career plans, and about 70% said that they would like to start their own company. And so here my general advice. So do you ever regret that you started your own business as opposed to took an 8 to 5 job? And importantly, what would be your advice for those who would like to take that path? I know it's not an easy path, a path less safe, less secure, more adventurous, maybe more rewarding in some ways. So your advice to those who would like to start their own company?
Yeah. Great question. I do think it does very much come down to kind of individual preferences and individual choice. But I will say this, as I've thought about in my career, like what are the most important things for me? Okay. I would tell you it's two. It's intellectual engagement and purpose. And so what I look for in whatever choose to spend my time in is there's got to be intellectual engagement. It can't be that you're doing the same thing every day, year after year after year. Like I could not be a tax preparer, right? I would go crazy after the first or second year because, what do you do the third or fourth or fifth year and the rest of your career? But there's some people who really are fine with that, right? And are okay with that. I would guess that folks who are coming to business school are not that profile. And so
Yeah.
intellectual engagement, innovation, purpose are the things that excite me. And if those are the things that excite you, then entrepreneurship is a great pathway to pursue. Uh, I also, as I mentioned in my introduction, I'm a partner with a venture fund, and so we see a lot of entrepreneurs. And one of the things we're trying to distill is what makes a great entrepreneur, right? And of course, there's no formulaic answer, but one trait or two traits I would say that come out very loudly and clearly to me i- is curiosity.
Hmm.
If you don't have curiosity, it's hard. You can't keep, curiosity should pull you into things as opposed to you're pushing yourself into things. And the second is to think clearly about ambiguity, if that makes sense. So life is ambiguous. There's lots of stuff which is messy and not clear, but can you organize it? Can you think clearly about that? Because, as an entrepreneur, you're trying to do something that doesn't exist. How do you become clear in your thinking around how you want to attack that? So if you have curiosity and if you're able to apply clarity to ambiguous situations and you love innovation and intellectual engagement, you're well on your way to making something great happen.
Yeah. Well, I hope students will take that path. More fun. We are almost out of time, but I would like to ask one more question. So they say that people learn from their own mistakes, but smart people learn from mistakes of others. So if you had to do it all over again, if you wake up tomorrow and somehow it's 2015 again, what would you do differently?
Are you talking about with this company
With
or
the
more
company, with the
broadly?
company, yes, yes. So any wrong turns that you took or any different paths or decisions that you wish you made or took?
Yeah, so certainly from the point of view of the company, I can speak to this one particular point, which I'm about to make. So this company from the beginning was started with the idea of having positive impact on the world. But I don't think we necessarily thought through all the implications of that from the beginning. And so we raised a fair amount of money, but we also, when we had large customers, states in India, that wanted to work with us but had no money in their budgets, we did stuff for free. We did massive implementations for no charge, right? And so we had impact, and that's how I told you we got to 100,000 schools, we got to 20 million and more students. But in that first go around, we didn't build a sustainable business model that allowed us to continue to kind of grow, right? Because when you're doing stuff for free, you raise money and then you
Yeah.
spend it on support, and you end up without necessarily kind of getting to the next stage. So we've changed that, and we did it more recently. We should have done it much earlier, and we said, look, we don't do for free. We cannot. However, we are not trying to maximize margins. We're trying to maximize reach. So we'll take the bare minimum margins we can to maximize reach, but we've got to make this a self-sustaining effort. So I
Mhm.
think to me that would be a, kind of a really big point in how we might do things differently.
And I hear you. So I love how people plan to be altruistic, help everyone, but unless you can pay your bills, you may not be able to do much good in the world. So I guess the business model still has to be there if you're in this long term.
Exactly.
There is a question from Mikitas Galeta about further questions, emails, contacts. So yes, for everyone who is watching the recording, You can always send the questions to admin@xculture.org. Again, if we don't have the answer, we will forward it to the company. I am not sure if this particular company would be generous enough to share their personal contacts, but again, with 6,000 students, I would almost recommend not to share your direct contacts because your phone will be ringing all day long. So, but Federica is here. Federica, so we will be managing the FAQ database. Most of the questions are repetitive, so we will not need to bother our busy executives with every question. But if it's a question we don't know the answer to, then Mikitas, you just send it to us. We will forward it to the company and then connect you when needed for further clarification. So
That would be great. And listen, Vas, thank you so much. And thank you all for attending. We would love to make some magic happen here. So we should now we've done our first part. Now the ball's in your court, and please do come back with opportunities to explore.
Yeah. And students, I was not joking when I said if you talk to potential consumers, you may be rewarded. So actually, this company did include what we call a real life challenge. So they said, okay, well, if you think this is the market, this is the customer, this is the way to talk to them, why don't you try? And if you do, they even offer you aftermarket commission from the first contract. So who knows, you may actually make some money and maybe even become a company representative in that market, which has happened many times in the past. So it is a product, as I said, that you can be proud of being associated with. So you can do well by doing good, so to speak. So you're not selling sugar water or addictive social apps. It's actually a useful product. No, I'm serious. I mean, some products I would sort of try to stay away from, and some I would be happy to help even for free if needed. So
Super.
Thank you so much for the information. And so let's see what kind of ideas students come up with and hopefully what kind of contacts, business leads they will bring to you at the end of the semester.
Great. Thank you so
everyone.
much once again. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.